Well, hello there, and welcome back to the Bitcoin Lore channel. This is a series of talks on the fundamentals of finance and Bitcoin. In this fourth part of a 15-part series, we'll be talking about the labor trap. The hook of this video is hard work alone can't outrun the printing of money. So, without further ado, let's get started. At this point in our journey, the fourth episode of a 15-part, we've come to the point where trust is involved. Trust in terms of you not having had experienced the experiences that others have, insofar as you're you and they're them. There's a believability and a trustworthiness involved, so that a trivial example could be, I've never been to Kuala Lumpur, but a friend of mine has, and she told me that there is such a place and it's a great place to visit or live. Now, I could choose to either believe her or not. It can be as simple as that, until such time as you yourself experience the questions and answers and imagine the images and verify for yourself, not in the sense of believing others, but in the sense of having generated those insights through your own eminent mental activities. And then, of course, you can believe them. That's the most powerful form of knowing. I bring that up because in this part of the series, speaking about the labor trap presupposes things like government and a definition of that, conspiracy theory phrase and a definition of that, and many other things. For the purposes of this discussion, let's start with defining a working definition of what government means. And you will quickly see where I'm going with this. Govern means to rule over. Ment is a form of the word mind. So, government means to rule over your mind. Now, you wouldn't think it would mean that if you didn't know what government meant. And no politician in their right mind would agree that that's what the word means. Univocal, equivocal. Most words, including this one, doesn't mean just one thing. It depends on the context. It depends on when the word or phrase was coined, what people agree onto what it means, and many other factors. But that's what government means. To rule over your mind. Think about that as we also talk about a working definition of conspiracy theory. Now, a conspiracy against you by one or two or more people, by definition, would be something that you wouldn't know because they were conspiring against you. Some hidden thing done for their benefit at the detriment of yours. And a theory could mean many things. In an academic, strict sense, it could mean something like theoretical physics, which is a highly respected and a very difficult subject. However, it could also mean something like a ridiculous example. I have a theory that there's pink elephants with white polka dots that can fly. I can write a paper on this and describe and explain it, and it's my working theory. So a conspiracy theory taken together is something that is you wouldn't know because people are conspiring against you in the shadows, and you can't prove it because it's a theory that's unprovable. That's what that word phrase really means as it's used by people who are defending themselves against other people who are accusing them of doing conspiratorial things against them. There's endless phrases like that that were designed to manipulate people and deceive them, and I don't want to get into all of the phrases, but they're endless. Now, let's talk about hard work, what that means, and money printing, and not being able to outrun money printing. What does that mean? Someone is 18 years old and they start working. They forego college and they start working. Let's just assume that. They work 40 hours a week, 5 days a week, maybe some overtime. This is how it is in the US of A. In Europe, it's probably less hours, and in other countries, it could be more. It depends on the person and whether they work for themselves or others. The point being that there's only so many hours in a day, and you can only work so long and hard until you get tired and need to rest. Now, the printing of money, fiat currency, could be practically infinite. So an individual can't outwork the inflation that's caused by the debasing of money and the endless printing of it with no gold or silver to back it up. Now, having said that, let's think about some of these conspiracy theory government stories that you hear about individuals. We won't name names so we can protect the guilty. Now, some person born in poverty had an idea, nobody believed in them, but they believed in themselves and they didn't give up. And the next thing you know, they're the richest person in the world. That's the story that we're supposed to believe. But in reality, it doesn't take a lot of thinking to think about, well, what about royalty? European royalty in particular. What about bankers? Swiss bankers in particular. To be more precise, Italian, French, or German Swiss bankers. After all, Switzerland is divided up into those territories that it borders. Wouldn't it make sense that a royal person tracing their ancestry back to Charlemagne, hundreds and hundreds of years, in some cases 1,000+ years, with rigorous lineage documented, or some banker who's a 10th generation banker in a country that's neutral, that funds everyone for various nefarious endeavors, right? Wouldn't those people be more wealthy than someone born in poverty who can only work so many hours? So let's ask ourselves, who's the richest person in the world that we're supposed to believe that's printed and pushed on social media and magazines? Never a royal person and never a banker. The reason why these things are important is because there's a believability factor involved in me and the research that I've done and trying to share that information with you through my own personal testimonial. This is not just some type of research where I clicked a few buttons and stuff. I am a trained data analyst. So I've been trained to analyze data. I have certifications in it. Not only that, but data analysis in some odd years since 2022 involved training large language and small language models such that the input, the output, and the process could all be reviewed and trained by human beings in order to teach various for-profit companies on how data should be analyzed properly and the conclusions it should come to. So that as a data analyst, I can present data to you, former data analyst, now a crypto analyst. I am interested in the truth and in divulging that truth in an unbiased way. So we have people that work, and based on this work, they're rewarded with a paycheck, a salary. They save this money over the course of many years. The money's value goes down because of the debasement of inflation. What is the end game of this? Well, on the side of people working hard to make an honest living to save up so they could feed their families and have a quality of life, you have that exponential growth of endless money printing by institutions, the Fed, as they call it, Federal Reserve. It's not federal. It says that on its website. In other words, federal is government. There's that term. And it's not federal, just like Federal Express is not federal. It's a private institution that was granted a charter till this day. And there's also nothing in reserve because there's no gold or silver to back up that endless printing of money. It's a debt-based system. We will do in the future deep dives into this, but suffice it to say now that the end game would be some kind of hyperinflation, hyperdeflation, or more likely a combination of the two that's been talked about by famous Bitcoiners, respected famous Bitcoiners. How do we hedge against inflation and the debasing of currency, fiat currency? Through the ownership of assets. Assets can be things like gold, silver, precious metals, real estate, collectibles like fine arts, cars, cryptocurrency like Bitcoin. So the takeaway from this video is that assets are superior to labor alone, and they're a hedge against inflation. This is very, very important for you to understand and to believe, because a person's financial status has a direct impact on the quality of life that they live. So, to wrap up, this has been the fourth part of a 15-part series of the fundamentals of money on the one side, finance we call it, and on the other side, Bitcoin, decentralized finance is what we call it. The hook in the jaw of this was that hard work alone and getting paid for your labor is not going to be enough in this day and age. This isn't the 20s, this isn't the post-World War II where one income is enough to sustain a family of four, a husband and wife, a couple, and a child or two. It's just not. So we have to look into the ownership of assets to hedge against inflation. And what we recommend in terms of what we have done as a team here at the Bitcoin Lore, and this is not financial advice, you have to do your own research. This is for educational and entertainment purposes. We have decided that Bitcoin is an excellent option in the ownership of assets besides labor to hedge against inflation, deflation, or worst case scenario, a combination of the two. These are tough things to think about and to reflect on. So I would like to encourage you to keep moving forward. If you came to these videos late, binge watch it. It'll only cost you your time, but you have to also realize that the current understanding that you have, assuming that you don't know the comparison and contrast between finance and definance and of what's really going on, the reality of the situations beyond the hocus pocus of words and people trying to come up with sophisticated ways to deceive. What is the proper meaning of it based on critical thinking? What is the proper emotional response that I should have? And take action based on insight. This is what we're all about. Of course, the critical thinking and the emotional intelligence is wrapped up in Bitcoin, which is the new form of digital currency, digital capital, digital credit. But that's okay, because this is a new start. And what we are trying to do is place, situate, position Bitcoin such that it's a lot quicker and easier to understand and to embrace if you decide to do so, and it will have a positive impact on your life. Thank you very much for your time, and I'll see you in the next video.